What will the Dallas Mavericks do at number 9 in the NBA draft next month? That is a question that has significant ramifications for the future of this organization. Alongside Cooper Flagg, what will they do at number 30? That matters as well as we hurtle toward the NBA draft in late June. And back with us here on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show is the assistant coach of Florida men's basketball, Jonathan Safir. Coach, thank you again for taking some time to hang with us and talk a little bit about some of these guys that you've had the opportunity to prepare to play against. And the guy that has been most commonly mocked to the Dallas Mavericks at number 9 has been Braden Burries, the guard out of Arizona, a kid who you had an opportunity to coach against back in November, and y'all handled him quite well, held him to only 3 points in that game. Now, I know Koa Pete had himself a nice day, but you guys did well against Braden Burries in particular. What do you know about this young man? What kind of player do you think he is? And what if Dallas does go in that direction at number 9, what kind of player do you think they're getting in Braden Burries?
We were fortunate in one respect to play Burries in his first college game. Not so fortunate to play Arizona, as I think we got Koa Pete's best game of the season. But Burries, he struggled in the opener, but it was the first game. Obviously, he finished the season playing incredible basketball. If I look at his game log here, he really turned the corner. It looks like, honestly, late November, he started playing much better and then maintained that level of play throughout all of conference play as a freshman is pretty freaking impressive. I think he's really good. He's a very good shot maker. I think the one knock I would say, I guess if you call it a knock, is that he's already 20 years old, so he's a very old freshman relative to some of the other guys we may talk about. And I think the age component is definitely important. But I think Burries is going to be a very good NBA player for a long time.
I'm curious about the strengths and weaknesses of his game, maybe compared to some of the other guards that are potential options for the Mavs. Like, there's Michael Brown Jr. out of Louisville. There's, he may fall, but it seems unlikely. But Katon Waggler out of Illinois. My personal favorite, LeBaron Philon. Just kind of, how do you make sense of maybe that group of 4 guards where it seems like none of them are necessarily a true point in the Steve Nash sense, but maybe in the 2026 NBA type of sense? How do you see those 4 kind of fitting in the league?
Yeah, so I think the best story of them all is certainly Katon Waggler, who we've never really seen a rise of this magnitude. He was not ranked as a recruit just 12 months ago, unknown. If we would have identified and found Katon Waggler, I think there's a real chance we're back-to-back national champs here at Florida.
Were you like, why did no one notify me of this kid?
No question. And so he's incredible, and I'll never forget. We actually scrimmaged Illinois in Orlando in October. And leading up to it, obviously we don't have much film on either team, and we exchanged some notes or starting lineups, and we talked to Illinois, and Coach Underwood texted Coach Golden, like, yeah, here's our starting lineup. And he mentions Waggler. And we're like, oh, this Waggler kid, like, as a freshman against, these old guards we have coming off a national championship, like sure, like we'll see what he's got. First possession or second possession of the scrimmage, he has a step back 3, and we're like, oh yeah, he's got it. He's got the it factor. And I think just as the season went on, his confidence grew and grew. And I think he's one of my favorite players in this class. But just in terms of his headspace, in terms of the head on his shoulders, the people around him, his size, I think he's got the total package. His ability to draw fouls as a freshman, his shot making, off the dribble shot making, all of the above. I think he's the real deal.
He didn't test super great at the combine. Again, it goes back to our conversation of how much does that stuff actually matter. But in terms of like explosiveness, I thought I read somewhere that he didn't have a dunk all season. Does that give any concern? Could that potentially drop him all the way to 9 to the Mavs? I don't know, but I think Mavs fans are maybe looking for any reason that Katon could possibly fall to them.
Yeah, I don't think that will drop him to 9. I think that's a very slight cause for concern. I think his ability to put balls in and finish at the rim anyways is still very good. But I think if you're Mike Schmitz or Masai Ujiri, you hope other teams are sitting there saying exactly what you said, Jonah, that he didn't test very well at the combine, didn't do very well, and somehow fall from a projected 5th or 6th to 9th.
How do you project
almost rooting against? I think his film is
Right.
good enough that you're almost rooting against him in the combine, hoping he falls to 9th.
That's right.
Yeah, and for good reason, because he was a ton of fun to watch at Illinois. How hard is it, though, to project a kid like Waggler that has the story that you're talking about, that a year ago nobody really knew who this guy was? He bursts on the scene, has the season that he did as a freshman in Illinois, and balloons his draft stock immensely. Is there any concern that goes along with that of, like, was this a flash in the pan, or do you look at it the other direction where, hey, he's got even more ascent coming because he is this late bloomer?
I would certainly look at it from my standpoint more as the latter. If he had a 10-game hot streak, then maybe, but he did it for the full 37 games.
Yeah.
He led Illinois to the Final Four. They're an old, mature group, and he was the leader and clear best player by the end of the year as a freshman. That's incredibly hard to do and incredibly impressive. And he's 6'6" with a 6'7.5" wingspan or whatever it is. And he's got great feel in split-second decision-making.
Compare the other three for us then. Braden Burries. I mean, just watching him, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but he just feels more like an off-ball guard. His assist numbers were way low for a guard that I thought might be able to create more for others. But then compared to like LeBaron Philon, who has much higher assist numbers, just kind of curious, how did they shake out? And compare them also with Michael Brown Jr. of Louisville, who just seems like an absolute rocket from beyond the three.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes down to, from the team building standpoint, how you can best position the talent around Cooper Flagg, who's your all-world generational talent. And, when we were our first year here at Florida, Coach Billy Donovan came by and spoke to our team, and he said something to me, or to our team, I'll never forget. And he said the NBA is not the 350 best players in the world. It's not 350 best players in the world. What the NBA is it's the 50 best or the 100 best, and then the next 300 or 250, depending on if it's 50 or 100, best to complement those top 50 or 100 players. And so I think the decision from the Mavs standpoint at 9 is they don't have another first-round pick other than 30 until 2031, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
At least that they control, yes. Yeah.
At least that they control. So then the question becomes, are you looking for the best, highest upside player? Are you looking for the most surefire NBA player? Are you looking for the guy who best complements Cooper Flagg? I think there's a lot of questions, and I think depending on which way you want to take it, helps answer and direct the situation at 9, right? So I know you asked specifically about the guards, but just kind of going through the list here, like for me personally, I think Adai Mara is going to be a long-time awesome NBA player. His feel, his size is hard to beat. If I had to guess, I think he was mocked in the top 20-ish a month ago, and now he's 10 or 11, and in the most recent ESPN mock, he's up to 8. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he keeps rising because everyone's going to get Wemby fever and Wemby mania of how to stop Wemby and just try and draft height or quote-unquote Wemby stopper when there isn't anybody who can stop that dude. But Mara, to me, is an awesome NBA player. If you want to bet on upside and long-term, we're probably not going to pick in the top 10 or hopefully not picking the top 10 for a long time again. We need to dice roll on a guy who we think has the highest upside. Then I think it's either Michael Brown or Nate Ament, right? And Nate Ament has great size, 19-year-old freshman in the SEC. He got better as the season went on, which is very hard to do as a freshman. He's a tall, effortless scorer and shot maker. He does a lot in that regard. His feel, I think, is just okay, but it's improving. And I think he got fouled, got blocks, and got steals as a freshman in the SEC, which is really hard to do. I think he's going to be a very good NBA player for a long time and has upside to be the capacity to be an all NBA type player in time. Right now, his floor is probably a little bit lower because he's still a work in progress. Michael Brown, I think, is a little similarly in terms of he's an absolute bucket, right? A straight flamethrower, and he battled injuries throughout his freshman year. Is that damaging? Is that long term? Is that worrisome? Is that people in his corner telling him not to play? Who knows what that may or may not be? I have no idea. That's something that the Mavs will obviously have to investigate. But his size at 6'5", even though he's little, even though he's slight, as he puts on muscle, as he continues to mature and fill out his body, the combination of his shot making and playmaking is hard to replicate in this draft class. So that's definitely something to monitor. But again, guys who are 6'5" but only weigh 100, I don't know how much he weighs, but can't be too much, and who only played 21 games half the season as in college, probably don't have the greatest track record of long-term success either. So there's pros and cons and upside and downsides to all these guys. And then I think Phylon, to me, kind of fits the category of, if you could, I don't want to say guarantee, but the most surefire top 8 rotational player for an NBA team for a decade. He's got great feel, great moxie, knows how to play, comes from a great system. Alabama's guards are always really good. They allow him to have freedom. They allow him to grow. They do a great job of development. They win a lot of games. He's become a much better three-point shot maker. He's always been a good two-point finisher. He became a much better foul drawer as a sophomore from his freshman year. He can pass, has great split-second decision-making. He's a player I really like, but if you told me he's a multiple-time All-Star, that'd probably be a little bit surprising to me. So it kind of just goes to how you value what you're looking for out of this 9th pick, where we are in the team building process, how we want to build and operate around our best player, generational talent, Cooper Flagg. So there's a lot of different ways that the Mavs can go, which make it pretty damn exciting, to be honest.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot here, Mr. National Championship winner from a year ago. Let's say you're you're Mike Schmitz. Let's say you're the GM of the Dallas Mavericks, and you've got pick 9. Who would you pick?
Well, who goes 1 through 8?
Come on, man. Of the guys we've mentioned.
I'm probably going Mara doesn't fit with Lively and Gafford. Love Mara, though. Either Ament or Michael Brown, assuming Waggler's not on the board.
Okay.
You mentioned Mara climbing up draft boards. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Now, the draft, though, is in terms of team building and supply and demand and positional scarcity, somebody I love that would really be in play at 30, that would make a lot of sense if he stayed in the draft, which we'll know in the next week or so, would be Tyler Tanner. If I'm running the Mavs, maybe I position myself to promise Tyler Tanner at 30 and then allow myself to not have to worry about the point guard position at 9 and take a Nate Ament or whatever, have more optionality and flexibility maybe at 9, because I think Tyler Tanner is the consummate winner. I know he's small, but when you talk split-second decision-making and you talk ability to just dictate terms with his quick hands and ability to get in the paint, and that's just a guy who's going to play in the NBA for a really long time. I think his closest comp, and this may take some eye rolls because he's only 5'11" or 6 foot, so it's a 5 or 6 inch difference in comparison, is he's a 5'11" or 6 foot version of Derek White. And Derek White's 6'5", I get it. Derek White's also turned himself into an all-star and a $30+ million player. What's a 5 inches version shorter of that? Still a starter or a 6th man or 7th man for a very long time and a very good player and a great guy for your second unit. And I'm hard-pressed to see Tyler Tanner fouling with just how good he is getting steals and impacting winning and all of the above.
And if memory serves, Masai Ujiri was a big fan of Fred VanVleet in Toronto. So I don't necessarily think
basically found him.
Right. I don't think he's out on small guards. So if you can play,
now
you've got a home.
To get Tanner to stay in the draft with like we talked about, the proliferation of NIL and what's on the table for him at Vanderbilt, probably would require a promise. And I'm not even sure a promise at 30 keeps him in the draft, but who knows?
Interesting.
You referenced Mara climbing up draft boards, and I'm wondering about a guy that maybe does that kick down the board enough that he falls to Dallas at 9. Kingston Fleming's the kid out of Houston. Right now, mocked to go 7, at least in the NBA, the ESPN mock draft that you were referencing a moment ago. I wonder, is that a kid that, as some of these other guys climb, could he fall to Dallas at 9? And what do you think about his game?
Yeah, I think he certainly could, right? So if some of these guys rise, somebody's got to fall. It's just the nature of simple economics. Kingston is actually somebody, I know he's a San Antonio guy, so Texas roots, who, because of our standing in Florida, him being committed to Houston very early, us not playing Houston this year, unfortunately, and honestly not even having many common opponents, throughout the course of the year. I've probably watched the least of Kingston Flemings of any of the potential prospects that we're talking about. But obviously, looking at his numbers as a freshman, doing what he did for a top 5 team, Houston, Kelvin Sampson has those guys tough as heck. I'm sure he's a competitive defender. He had a ridiculous assist rate as a freshman and a shot maker. Is all impressive. I think he's a little bit less of a shot maker, though, than or at least 3-point shot maker than some of those other guys. And that's obviously an incredibly important skill.
Coach, I'm curious. We had a graphic up earlier in the show about the Spurs' average age, essentially all 25 and under for their starting 5, and we're talking about building a young core around Cooper Flagg. When Schmitz and Ujiri are approaching this, how much does age play into a factor in that negotiation?
Yeah, I think age definitely matters. I don't know how much it matters in terms of comparison of a 19-year-old versus 20-year-old, but it definitely matters in your team building process. Like, I think you look at the Spurs, and I think it was Jonah talking about it before I hopped on, and what they've done with Wemby is incredible. What they've done surrounding him is just as impressive. The Castle pick was a great pick, and then taking Dylan Harper at 2 was obviously a stroke of good fortune, but he's a fantastic player, and those guys all match the Wemby age curve, which allows the Spurs to take a little bit of gamble and dice rolls on a De'Aaron Fox. So when De'Aaron Fox expires or his contract's up or whatever it may be, maybe even have the ability to go out and get another older vet, all while this young core is still, right now they're 20 to 22. Fox is a little bit older. When you exchange Fox in a couple of years to the next Fox, those guys will still be 24, 25. So you'll have an extended window of bringing in an older, I don't want to say star because Fox isn't quite a star category, but an older, very good player to help complement the ascension of a generational talent in Wemby, but an ultimate winning player in Castle and an incredible player who's had an unbelievable playoff run in Dylan Harper.
I think if you're the Mavs, you kind of have to think about how do we win the West, right? And if Wemby is your path of most resistance, you got to figure out how do we beat them? How do we beat the Spurs? So, I mean, if you have pick 9 and pick 30, I mean, what's the best way to attack it in terms of, the prospects that are available? I kind of come back to this also. Winning those games down the stretch for the Mavericks and ending up with pick 9, I don't mean to rehash this, but I do mean to rehash this.
Yeah.
I mean, it really nuked them quite a bit. I mean, having somewhere in the top 6, they would really have – it just feels like the talent gap once you get out of maybe 6, 7. I'm not going to do it.
You just did it.
Once you get out of
It's already done, man.
Director Kelly's already doing it for me. I'm not going to do it. But once you get out of the pick 6, 7 range, then it seems to be there's more. Not necessarily that the guys can't be successful, but they come with more question marks. There's less a feel of certainty around him. Saf, if you had pick 9 and 30, and you mentioned kind of going the Tanner Ament route, but if you have to game plan for Wemby and you have to go through Wemby in a conference final, what would be the 2 players, at those respective picks that you think could get the Mavs necessarily over the hump?
Do you want my honest answer?
Yes.
I don't think the Mavs are 2 picks away from competing with Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs. So I'm taking the players that I think best help my organization and let the chips fall where they may. Because then 2, 3, 4 years from now, when we're really in contention and have Cooper Flagg and these hopefully 2 successful draft picks plus whatever young talent and players Masai and Mike identify to go along with Derek Lively, whatever other players added in free agency or via other acquisition methods, then you hope they're gelling and put themselves in position, for lack of a better term, to be in position. And then you're playing Wemby, and maybe you get him and you beat him, or maybe he's got an ankle turn or whatever it may be. There's so many variables and factors at play years down the road that it's hard to say or justify or try and strategize to specifically beat one player or one team.
If nothing else, the future is for the Mavs at least a few years down the road, and let the Spurs and Thunder have the next 2 or 3 years and try and point toward 2030.
Beat each other up, run up those max contracts,
right? Yeah,
and then figure out how to build your team again.
Jonathan Safir, the assistant coach at Florida men's basketball. Coach, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate the insight. This was a bunch of really good information for Mavs fans to have to kind of weaponize now going into the NBA draft next month. So thank you very much.
Awesome. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me. And I just realized, Jonah, when you said Ament and Tanner. There might be some SEC bias there if I was the GM of the Mavs, but
there might be. Hey,
I
we got to give an
love
extra.
Waggler.
We got to give an extra thanks for Saf. He did this literally mere hours after his Buffalo Sabres had their hearts ripped out.
Man,
To bring that
I'm
up.
very sorry.
So he's a good man for for still agreeing to show up. Sometimes you got to show up even when the heart is hurting. But we appreciate you coming on, man.